All right, we all back.
Yeah.
Can I continue?
Yeah, it was we were talking about the curiosity, and the curiosity killed the cat.
No, actually, this created the curiosity for the next thing here.
And everybody was like waiting for you to go ahead.
Yeah. So the Bahubali effect got created. And welcome to part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so are you all able to see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we were talking about the effect of meaning or gestalt, which is if you give anything which is incomplete to the brain just wants to go ahead and complete it, or it will create curiosity about what happened and how to further go ahead with it, to learn more, to complete what was said. So how do you use this in your teaching, in your training? What can you do? Okay, so when you're teaching, when you're telling something, firstly, when you best way to do it as a storytelling point of view, create stories that create interest in the students, in the participants, and even when you're telling stories, do not rush to the next scene to tell the next scene. Go step by step. Ask them, okay, so this is the situation. What do you think? What would have happened now? Allow them to think and allow them to complete the loop. It's okay even if they think differently, or what was, for example, I was giving you the example of Shivaji and Afzal Khan. Even if you are explaining that story, you say, okay, the situation was there where Shivaji was unarmed and he was in that interaction with Afzal Khan. What would you have done if you were there in that place? Do not complete it first. First, keep it open, ask them. In fact, if you notice, it is something which even I am attempting to do in this webinar. By first asking you that how do you think you are going to use this in your learning and teaching? And then I'm giving the answer. Now, if it was a face-to-face, I would have probably interacted you more, or even if we had more time. But even that question, before I just roll out what I have to say, even that question from my end is good enough for your brain to trigger some thoughts that, okay, how can I use it? Then of course the answer is following. Another way to use it is very much like the Bahubali effect, or what just happened. The session ended and then you were curious about what's going to happen. Even when you end a certain teaching session, let's say you are a professor or a teacher where you're going to have a series of sessions with your students. You have completed your content for today's session and you know what's going to be the content for the next session. Complete your today's content around 5 to 10 minutes sooner than normal, than the end time. And then you open the next session. You say, okay, so next session, so we have discussed about Shivaji today. Next session, we are going to talk about Rana Pratap. And do you know that he had a very faithful horse? And see if you can find out his name and find out what all things he did before we come and talk about it next time. So giving some hints, some clues. Vis-a-vis, think about this situation. You tell your students, okay, we are going to talk about Rana Pratap, please read and come. How many students you think will read and come? But if you ask them what they should expect and what are the things that can get them interested to read about it, then you have created that curiosity. Yeah, you keep them guessing. The point here is not that whether they will think of the right answer or not. The point here is that they will think. It is important for you to make your participants think rather than spoon feeding them. Later on, obviously, we are there to give them the guidance and the content. Yes, it keeps them engaged even after you leave. Right, Prerna? Okay, so these are 6 effects and this is how you use it. Now, there is a 7th effect that I'm going to talk about now. The last one. If you see the graph here, do you see some arrows coming up below the graph? This is an effect that can pull up the entire graph. It can enhance the complete recall of whatever was said during the entire learning period. And this is the effect of interest. When you have interest in a particular subject, you will go out of your way to learn it, to understand it better, ask more questions, and get to the crux of it.
Oh.
Right? And if you don't have interest in something, then what will happen? It will take double, triple, maybe 10 times the time that it will take you to understand the subject where you have interest. So arousing interest, creating interest. The methods that we spoke earlier, the effects of imagination, association, meaning, they can all help you as a teacher or a trainer to enhance the interest by enhancing curiosity, asking questions. Yes, Shilpa, I will do that by asking questions and everything. Now, apart from that, if you are learning, and if you are learning a subject which you need to learn, but let's say you are not very much interested in that subject, and for whatever reasons, for professional development, you need to learn that subject because it's part of the curriculum. Still, you can develop interest in that subject. How? Any guesses? How can you do that? How can you create momentary interest, if at all? Yeah, connecting them to subject. But let's say you are learning. Talk from your point of view as a learner. How will you create a momentary interest in your subject, which is apparently dull, dry, boring? First, understand from your point of view, then figure out ways to connect it with your students also. Okay, let me give you. Look at the subject from, Shilpa says use images of interest. Yes. So create images. So using imagination, using the 5 senses, that is all that you can do as per the earlier effects as well. Another thing you can do is that momentary interest can be created by critically evaluating that subject. Let's say you are learning economics and you don't like it. Look at it from the point of view, from the eye of a critic. If you were to write a critique on this, that this is a really useless thing. For you to point out how useless it is, you first need to understand how they are claiming it to be useful. And then you need to negate that. So this is one of the techniques of building interest. There are many more techniques as well. But this is one of a powerful technique where you look at the subject from a critique point of view. Another is that, let's say you are giving, let's talk about English grammar class. You are giving examples of nouns, verbs, adjectives, and you have created parts of speech flowchart or a mind map on the screen, and you have put what are nouns, what are verbs, what are prepositions, what are conjunctions under them. Now you have, even while doing that, maybe you have asked responses from the participants, from the students. Okay, tell me an example of a noun, a verb, and you put it on the board. After you have completed your chart, you tell the students, okay, now here is the chart, but let me tell you one thing. There are 3 mistakes in this chart. Can you point it out? Which means somewhere there is a wrong categorization, a wrong classification of a certain word under a certain category. Can you point it out? So now this process requires the students to evaluate each and every word on that board and critically examine to see why it fits in that category, so that they can say that it is wrong. And what is happening when they are going through this process mentally? They are reinforcing the learning. They're learning, okay, fine, this qualifies as a noun because it fits this criteria. It qualifies as a verb because it fits this criteria, and so on. So create that interest, and your recall graph will enhance altogether. Okay, so these are the 7 effects. I will quickly recap all the 7 effects. Is that okay? Are you all with me? Sorry, Shilpa, I didn't get that. Window has done it. Yeah, the screen is there, but I'll just recall the 7 ones. Primacy, recency, imagination, association, understanding and misunderstanding, meaning, interest. Out of these, what is most in your control as a teacher or a trainer is imagination and association. Visual techniques, invigorating the 5 senses, having a recap discussion, interaction, asking questions, facilitation rather than teaching, repetition, associating one with the other. That's how you can maximize the recall effect. And I've also given you a simple example of creating interest, which will take up the bar altogether. Okay, a very powerful technique that uses imagination and association, again from the domain of Tony Buzan, is a mind map. And to give you an example of a mind map, here is my introduction, which I skipped in the beginning. So that's me, Mehernosh Randeria. These are my educational qualifications: chartered accountant, cost accountant. Started off as a corporate finance professional. 18 years of corporate finance experience. Started with PricewaterhouseCoopers, moved on to Legrand as VP Finance. Then continued my financial education. Did Masters in Financial Management from General Bajaj. Did some short courses on leadership development. Continued in the journey of corporate world. Joined Johnson Controls. Continued studying as well. ACCA, I did my IFRS diploma, then short course from ISB Hyderabad. Moved on to join Hover Automotive, Nissan Motors as a CFO. Continued studying, did my CFP and CWM. And 5 years ago, I launched myself as a W3 coach. As a trainer, coach, and speaker who covers the 3 Ws of life. And in this field, went on taking more certifications. I'm a certified life coach, an NLP trainer, a Brainable trainer, and in fact, all that I'm sharing with you today in terms of learning skills is thanks to the Brainable concept of mind mapping, memory techniques, speed reading, creative thinking, lateral thinking, and much more. I'm also a memory trainer in a technique called musical windows that helps you to remember numbers. I'm a certified GTD trainer, which is getting things done. Emotional skills assessment administrator, a trainer of emotional fitness gym, and a physical fitness trainer from K11 Fitness Academy. And that's what makes me India's first and only W3 coach, which is wealth, wisdom, and wellness. And I have been doing this since last 5 years, wherein I have conducted more than 600 workshops, covering more than 4,500 participants, and across more than 12 nationalities. And that's me. So anyway, purpose is not to impress upon you who I am, but the purpose is to impress upon you the power of a mind map. If this CV was presented in a word form or even through a bullet point list PowerPoint, it would have gone into pages and slides, and by the time you're on the 7th slide, you would have forgotten what is on the first slide. This is the power of a mind map, which uses imagination, association, and by putting this introduction at the end, I'm also attempting to take benefit of the recency effect with you all. Okay, so that's it from my side. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great, Mehernosh. It was a fantastic webinar. And yes, I liked your last point of introducing yourself, where we have the recall effect. And yes, so I guess the entire 7 points which we just which you just explained would have actually taken more than an hour or two, if you were to explain without using the mind map and the way you portrayed it. So it's really amazing. And as I said that, at the beginning, that I'm not going to introduce you because, it's really impossible for me to remember all the degrees and certificates that you have earned. So it's great. It's great the way you have introduced yourself to the mind map. It's really wonderful. I would like to thank you on behalf of THT, and it's really wonderful. And we hope to see you in an offline session for a complete 1-day session where you can actually help us out with memory techniques and details, because that is something that I think the teachers would also be interested in.
Certainly. Thank you, Rakhi,
Yeah.
for being with you all over. And
yes,
thank you for this platform.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you, Ms. Shilpa, for being an active listener. And thank you, everyone, for joining in. Thanks, Latika. Thank you so much for your comment.
Even I would like to thank personally Shilpa, Prerna, Latika for participating and engaging in the discussion. Thank you.
And back and joining the webinar again. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Great. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.